I'm turning now to the demographic argument. And of course, this is not all very new. I just will repeat a couple of things, but they are so important that they should be repeated and should be stressed again and again. And of course, I'm focusing here to the situation in OECD countries. The demographic context in Africa and Asia and Latin America is very different, but at least in OECD countries, falling birth rates and higher life expectancy result in fastly graying populations and in a higher old age dependency ratio. Just showing you an impressive graph. This is comparing the situation 1950 and 2050 based on our predictions. And you see the, well, incredibly changing age structure of OECD societies in general. And this is really, really worrisome to some extent. I think people getting older is also basically a very good message. We should never forget this and never see graying populations as only a problem. I think there is a huge potential, but we should be willing to change our economies and our societies and our politics to address these challenges and also to be able to take profit of the good elements in these demographic evolutions. What we should do is utilize talents, competencies in all the populations and keep them productive. And this demands education. This is not possible without education. And we should also prepare young people for lifelong learning. I will not focus very much on the lifelong learning argument. I think this is very well known by you, but it still is a strong argument. I have the impression that lifelong learning is a little bit fading away from the agenda and from the speak of education ministers and world leaders. We should always, and even more so today in the context of the crisis, we should keep on stressing the arguments of lifelong learning. If we look at the expected dependency ratio, you see that the percentage of the population aged 65 comparing to the adult population will increase drastically across OECD countries. Another demographic argument often overlooked, and I was a little bit surprised that it was not mentioned in the Maastricht. Mobility was mentioned, but I think migration, which will be one of the challenges of the 21st century. Worldwide, people on the move, resulting in highly diversified populations worldwide. If we look at the stock of foreign-born population in OECD countries, it's now moving to 15%. Some countries not that drastically, but overall we will face a situation in a couple of years that 15% on average of our population is foreign-born, not counting even the second or third generation migrants. I'm turning now to, after the economic, demographic, to the social arguments, because there are also strong and compelling social arguments for investing, expanding and innovating in higher education. Of course, persisting inequality of opportunity. This is an old argument, I know, but we did not do well in addressing this challenge. When I was in policy development myself, we have tried a lot of strategies and focused a lot of attention on this, but I must say that we are not seeing the results yet in the figures, at least for the countries I'm aware of. Continuing expansion has some impact on equity. Not drastically, but it at least has some impact. And higher education will probably remain, at least for the disadvantaged groups in society, the engine of social mobility. But we need to stress absolutely the development of strategies of active diversification of recruitment in higher education institutions. I should not tell you because you are doing that, but the more traditional institutions are not addressing this challenge very well. students from ethnic minorities and migrant communities. And we have a lot of reservoirs of talents in underrepresented sectors of the population, which we should and we will have to tap in order to meet the skill demand of the 21st century economy. Just to show you a couple of graphs, this is the difference between students coming from a blue-collar family compared to the average. The average is the light blue bar, and the students coming from blue-collar families are the dark blue bar. And you see the difference. You see, and you have to compare it with the right axis, the odds ratio. An odds ratio of 1 means equal opportunity, but all countries are very far from that. So there is still a persisting inequality of opportunity in higher education. This is the odds ratios for different generations, and you see it's improving. For the younger age cohorts, the odds ratios are improving, but in some countries we see the reverse tendency, at least in Eastern Europe. We see some reverse tendency towards more inequality of opportunity. But on average, it's slightly improving, but still a huge task ahead of us. I would also like to point to another part of the social argument, which is changing value systems. And I'm drawing here not on OECD research, but on the World Values Survey, and just showing this picture. And this picture is for various groups of countries, showing the move that each generation is experiencing towards more secular, rational values and more self-expression values. Self-expression values meaning I have the right and the ability to control my own life. And we all know that more secular, rational values in society and more self-expression values in society underpin, but also are supported by higher levels of education. And you see the rapid changes that even if in European countries, look at the trajectory for Northern Europe, that each generation is making. And this is a very optimistic picture. I think it's one of the most important drivers in higher education expansion and innovation, because it also underpins the opportunity for self-directed learning, which is so important for ODL. There are differences between groups of countries, but the movement is in the same direction. Don't look too much at the reverse tendency in the older generations, because the explanation for this is that the very young generations have not yet stabilized value systems, so that they may return a little bit on the overall evolution. The more advanced value systems we find in the age groups of the 20, 30, 35 cohorts. Okay, now looking at the capacity of higher education systems to address these challenges. First of all, listing what has come out of a very big enterprise we have been doing at OECD, the thematic review of tertiary education. It's a 2-volume book, and it's available for those who are interested on our website. And this list of 7 main trends is really illustrating what is happening in higher education today. Continued growth and expansion. So there is no, you should not believe those people, even for Europe and the United States, that say that we have reached a high level of access and participation, and that we will not witness any longer a situation of further expansion. There will be further expansion. I'm showing you some figures in a minute. Diversification of provision, very important. More heterogeneous student population, new funding arrangements, increased focus on accountability and performance, new forms of governance and management, and global networking, mobility, internationalization, collaboration, etc.